Hello viewers, recently I've been ranking up my fourth account, Alex Albon, and as a BB rated driver now, I'm still on my quest to become A+ rated, and the next part of the journey hits Watkins Glen in Group 4. So I primed my Nissan GTR ready for battle, accepted a couple of very dated friend requests on this account, and set a qualifying lap. Now I did a couple of laps here, not many, 4, and set a 154, put me 5th on the grid. Now this was a really good example of being the calmest and coolest customer in the shop, if that's a weird way of putting it. But essentially this race boiled down to everyone else started descending into anarchy, whereas I kept a fairly cool head. And let's not forget, we're trying to improve not only the driver rating by getting good results, but also the sportsmanship rating by doing it in a clean manner. So yes, we want to win, but we have to do it in a way that does not attract penalties and too many collisions. Now up against the Subaru WRX here, into the braking zone of the chicane, and we kind of goad the other guy into making a mistake there. And so that's one mistake, fairly costly for that guy. We're gonna go up into P4, and if you watch the top two guys, you might have noticed they've already made contact once in this race already, but the tally is surely going to rise many more times before this one is over. As we go into the toe corner here, about 2/3 of the way through the Watkins Glen lap, on the back straight now. Again, they're going to make contact here. You might have seen a puff of smoke, and as we go into the right hand hairpin here, the Portuguese driver is going to go for the lead. They're going to make contact. The Swiss driver is just going to sail by and go into the lead. And this was a perfect example of two drivers. So you've got the guy in second, the guy in third, so the daddy, and this guy here, the Dragao 1977. It's a perfect example of two drivers becoming so focused on each other that they almost forget to try to win the race. Now they both go into the wall there, make contact, and I'm going to gain a position up into P4 with what looks like a very angry Portuguese driver now to try to contend with there in second. As we go into the first corner, Swiss guy there up ahead, drifting a little bit wide on the exit of the first corner, not getting a good exit at all, and may well get a penalty for that. Indeed they do. And coming up the S's here, this proved to be a very weird moment, and I suppose it's kind of usual when the sportsmanship ratings are fairly low, or comparatively low. Suddenly the Portuguese driver just steers to the right, and seemingly unprovoked, and ends up then smashing into the wall on the other side, and then being reunited with his best friend, the daddy, back there at the chicane. And that was just, for me, a classic example of two guys just going at it with each other for no good reason. When there was a race to win, they really wanted to just beat the other guy, when sometimes you just got to let go of your ego and just, work together, or just, take the L temporarily, but take the W ultimately. Now here, we get up the inside, the Swiss driver serves the penalty, and it's going to be 3 abreast temporarily. The Portuguese driver actually ends up leaving the lobby there, you might have just spotted. And we're going to go from third up into first, and this kind of sparks some very good battling between myself and this other guy here, called Nick, as we're going to go side by side for a couple of corners. And on the exit of this left-hander, he's going to perform what I must say was a very tidy old switcheroo. So fair play to this guy, and it was a really good little battle between the two of us for a couple of corners, and just shows you it can be done. Even though we're in the lower rated lobbies, we're in B sportsmanship here. That doesn't mean that everyone has bad intentions. A lot of the guys here, sometimes they get penalties because of other people's incidents, and then they just find themselves in these lobbies through limited fault of their own. But it was a good little battle there, and we're going to try and pull away on the exit of the first corner, lap number 3, just trying to establish some sort of authority on the race, but it's not always easy on this back straight. I tried to steer to the left there to try to really minimise the slipstream assistance that I was handing to the cars behind. Deciding to go somewhat defensive here. Looks like he was holding station just behind, was Nick. And so I was able to go into the chicane unchallenged and maintain the lead of the race. And in fact, I think second and third challenged each other there, and they lost a bit of time because suddenly I find myself 9/10 of a second in front, albeit going a little bit wide there. Going to lose a couple of tenths from that line. Not an ideal way to take that corner, but still managing to pull away. And I think this race for me was a perfect example of just being calm, cool and collected and not taking too many risks, being patient. And you know, a lot of people do ask me from time to time in the comment section of various Gran Turismo videos, they tell me their rank and they tell me, you know, I can't escape from these lobbies because I'm trying to be clean. I'm really honestly trying my best, but I'm just getting smashed around. People are hitting me for no reason, and that is definitely something that happens a lot. But sometimes, you know, as weird as it is, sometimes if someone's going to ram you and force you out of the way, you kind of just let them do it and then wait for them. You've got to be patient and wait for them to have their incident, which they surely will. Now, fairly big slide there as I just touched the edge of the grass, and unfortunately that brought Nick back into contention as we set the fastest lap of the race, down in towards turn 1, lap 4 now, and he's right on my tail as we hit the anchors into the first corner. But that actually in turn gave him a slightly poor run on the exit, but he is going to have the slipstream here as we go through the S's, again taking quite a weird line to minimise the slipstream I was giving to him. And we're going to keep to the right hand side here to take a semi-defensive line going in, but I don't really think he's quite close enough to go for this overtake into the bus stop. So once again going in unchallenged, and I felt like perhaps he wasn't getting the correct exit or was hanging back. It felt like he was almost hanging back to not go for that overtake, which was quite weird, but just definitely not getting that speed as they would like. And a couple of mistakes here for the guy in second, and I was able to extend this margin in the lead and ultimately quite convincingly bring home a win. It was a gap of 2 and nearly 3 seconds. In fact, it was 3 seconds by the time I crossed the finish line. So quite a convincing win in the end, but it did take some patience. And I wanted to look at the replay here. So this was the first incident. So the purple car is the Portuguese driver, the black car is the British driver. So that was the first incident coming out of turn 1. Then you had this one. So just quite a late defence there, a bit of a lazy late defence, a bit unnecessary, just need to block one side and just be sure with it. The Portuguese driver comes in and it doesn't really bother turning into the corner. So they're more focused on each other at this point. The Swiss guy slips through. They have their automated lock-on system targeted straight onto the opposing driver rather than going for first. And again, more incidents here. Coming through this turn, it looks like they're so focused on each other. They both end up going into the wall and losing a couple of positions. In fact, well, the Portuguese driver lucky to not lose a position. But then here was that very strange moment. I really do not know what this Portuguese guy was doing here. Ends up just really with the self-send. It was quite an unnecessary moment. In this situation, I would have just settled for going in behind the blue car, but clearly wanted all of the track. Gets reunited with the daddy, and now they've just been brought back together. It's like they are magnetically attracted to each other, and it really was quite hilarious to see. I mean, I don't know if I should laugh or cry, to be honest. It really was that bad. Portuguese driver gets into a spin, then another spin here, and inadvertently gets sent into the wall, and that was the last we ever saw of him, because he would go on to leave the lobby a few moments later. And this was the daddy. Goes wide here, gets a penalty for doing so, loses a position, and decides, that's it for me, everybody. I'm going to say goodbye to this lobby. And that was it. There we go. He says goodbye. And that was just, it was a sad tale, really, because those two started first and second in the race. So once again, deciding to not watch the sportsmanship video. Now with 7 races done, 4 wins, we were up to a BA rated, but still with room for improvement, quite close to A rated driver, but still needing to do a couple more races. So I jumped back in, improved my qualifying time, crossing the line there with a 52.7, which was actually quicker than my main account, and that put me on quite an assured pole position. Now we saw in the first episode of this that starting on pole doesn't always translate into an easy race. If you can break away quite quickly, then yes, normally it is quite easy, but if the guy in second can just send it on you and drag you into a battle, then it's not always going to be easy. So I was quite wary of that. It happened in the Maggiore race in the previous episode of this, and I was quite wary that this guy could get the slipstream and overtake me into the chicane at the end of this straight. So I was very, very conscious of going defensive here and just making sure I establish my position in the lead here. As we go in, we managed to do that, and you know, it's like a tick box. We've established the lead, we've kept the lead, and now with some clear air and a couple of corners which are hard to overtake on, we can hopefully just focus on going forwards and set some good corners here to try to extend that gap. And that's basically what happened here. We got a nice couple of corners in a row, opened up the gap. They weren't any longer in overtaking range, and ultimately winning that race with a fairly convincing margin. And in the next one, up against Water is Wet. We all know this guy as pretty much the GOAT of motorsport, I would say. And you can see actually I managed to extend a fairly good advantage quite early on this one. So this race was definitely slightly easier than the first one, and I managed to finish this one again in the lead, thankfully breaking away quite early and getting the job done. And that brought me up to BS rated. So I was S on sportsmanship, almost A on driver rating. 9 races done, 6 wins, and with the 10th race we bring out the Williams Nissan GTR, because we are jumping into the Group 3 race around Mount Panorama, starting in 12th. This guy didn't like the track, so he quite funnily requested to change the circuit, and he, funnily enough, was the guy starting immediately behind me. Now this was a bit of a risk, starting at the back of the pack, starting P12, not deciding to qualify, and trying to pull off a clean race here whilst also getting a good result would be quite tricky, I think. This is not the easiest track to be clean around. The mountain always poses a challenge. It's narrow, it's undulating, it's twisting, and it's very, very easy therefore to get caught up in an incident. Now I was immediately on the defensive as I didn't get a good run out of turn 1. I thankfully managed to keep the position here into turn 2 as we then hurtle up the hill, trying to find our way through the overtakes past these guys. And it wasn't going to be easy as we go through the cutting, I do believe it's called. If I got that one right, please do confirm in the comments. I do really try to remember my corner names, but I often get them completely wrong, embarrassingly wrong at times. But as we drop down the hill, back up the other side, this is a fast sweeping left. Bit too much brake from the German in front, and I do actually collide with the back of him. A bit of a yellow flag here, but I'm not seeing any incidents. So we're going to remain in P12. Dropping down the hill again, I'm into the back of him. And thankfully for me, he managed to keep control of the car, but then he drifts a little bit wide here down the hill and gets a 1 second penalty for that. So I was kind of half responsible, I would say, for that one, as I think he could have hit the brakes a bit more after the collision, but ultimately drifting a bit wide. So as you can see, that was a really bad lap from me. Many bits of contact, almost got overtaken straight away, and causing a few collisions on the top of the mountain. Not an ideal way to begin, and thankfully we don't have any penalties, but we're still in P12, so we haven't actually gained any positions, which isn't really good enough at this point. This guy in front with the right indicator on, and he was saying he didn't like this circuit. A couple of cars wide. So that's 2 positions we're going to gain. So to be fair, that was quite a lucky lap. I gained 2 positions courtesy of other people crashing. But I suppose that is half the game sometimes, just getting to the finish line without having too many incidents, or at least big ones. And then the German actually going very wide there. And I'm going to slip up the inside and move up into 9th. How about this guy? Is he going to go very slow? We're going to slip up the inside, carry the extra speed through, and move up into 8th. Towards the end of lap number 3, catching up with this Spaniard driving the Corvette, who was doing a good job in that car, to be honest, because not many people were choosing anything other than the formidable Nissan GTR. Into the braking section for the chase, and you see I just overcooked that one slightly, but managed to regain control. Now we are, how many seconds? 17 seconds away from the lead. That's quite a sizable margin at this point. It's only 3 laps into the race, but we did start on the hard tyre, and therefore we have the better tyre to still use in this race. Into turn 1, lap number 4, taking a nice line through here, a bit too much curb maybe on the inside, but potential overtaking manoeuvre here at the end of this straight, as we can tuck into the slipstream of Kimi. Are they going to go defensive on the right hand side? No, they're going to leave me the opportunity to get this move done. Looking for the 100 board, there it is, on the brakes. I think they do turn in slightly there, which doesn't help their cause because they actually get overtaken as a result. And that's something you've got to watch out for. Sometimes people they're not aware that you're there and they still turn in. And, well, actually the Norwegian driver there, going around the outside but then making a mistake immediately. Yellow flag here for that guy. Moving therefore up into P6. And at the end of the 4th lap, I felt it time to bring the car in and change over onto the medium tyre. And this would therefore release me on the better tyre with 6 laps remaining to try to hunt down a few more positions. Now, coming out here in P10, but a couple of the cars in front yet to do their pit stop, so we would gain a few more. Yellow flag here. Take a look, there's going to be an incident. Where is it? There it is. Someone going very slow in the BMW. And that's going to be another position for free. And again, just keep the car on the track, keep it facing the right way. Mount Panorama, definitely a difficult circuit, and proving that you know, a lot of people are going to be crashing around here. So if you can just make it to the end, then that's great. Now here, we find ourselves up against none other than Fernando Alonso. I'm going to try and do our best to overhaul him. Is Alex Albon better than Fernando Alonso? Well, we're about to find out. Down the back straight, he's into the wall. We're going to try and search for a way through. Not on the left. How about the right? We're going to go over to the right. Alonso, very robust with his defence, and he makes a late little swerve there. And it's really quite unnerving, I would say, trying to overtake some of these guys. But Fernando Alonso takes no prisoners. Down in towards the chase, he's got the inside on the left, and there's not much I can do here. I'm going to have to tuck in behind. We do have a slow looking car in 7th there, as Fernando, oh my goodness, he's going to go into the wall. And it was quite a hilarious crash, as he just got a little bit wide and got pulled away by the grass into the wall. And then boom, race over for Fernando. And at the end of this lap, we're going to move up into 4th, courtesy therefore of a couple of cars going in for their pit stops. And we are now 18 seconds off the lead, which turned into 5 seconds, as I said, the fastest lap of the race to begin lap 7. As the cars in the lead then they took their pit stops. Now, I was rapidly gaining on the lead. This is something I didn't really expect, especially after the disaster that was lap 1. I'm now 1.5 seconds off of the lead of the race, and we can definitely get this one done. Down the hill, tricky left hand of the Forest Elbow, and then onto the back straight here, tucking into the slipstream of the car in front with the Too Fast Too Furious Skyline livery, which looks quite nice. And he's going to go way too deep. And we're going to go nicely around the outside and go up into 2nd place. And that battle is not going to resume because that guy is going to go into the pit lane. So now it's pretty much a 1v1 for the race win. With 3 laps left to go, it's myself up against the Ford Mustang. Can we go for the race win on our 10th race? Potentially reach the A driver rating. Now coming through here, as we begin to descend the mountain, this is unfortunately where it unravelled for this poor soul, as he gets a big kick of oversteer, and before you know it, you're facing perpendicular into the wall. And it's this kind of scenario where you can look 90 degrees to your right and see your opposition hurtling towards you, and you know you've done something majorly wrong. And unfortunately, as we see the green flag, that was very symbolic of that moment of reaching the lead of the race and having clear track in front. But unfortunately for the guy in the Mustang, dropping down a couple of positions down to 4th after throwing away what looked like at least a certain second. Ultimately at the end it's going to be 2nd place, up 11 positions, and quite a satisfying race. In the end, I did watch the boring sportsmanship video just to get it out of the way and not have to watch it again after that. So with that, we now have an AS rating. We still have A+ to achieve, but AS is a good barometer to have got to after 10 races. So do tune in next time for more Alex Albon adventures, and we can see if we can get up to A+. But thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Get yourself subscribed if you're new to this channel, and I hope you have an amazing day. See you next time. Goodbye.